Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Arell, and today what I think I'd like to talk about with you has to do with cultivating habits that calm us down. I was actually thinking about this in the gym today as I was doing a pretty intense workout on a rogue air bike. It's very hard actually, and my heart rate was getting so high that it was difficult to breathe. And often when I'm having workouts like this, if you watch the video on CrossFit, you might have picked this up, is that I'm thinking about how does this physiological experience, how does the emotional experience of wanting to quit parallel with things that are happening in my real life or things that are happening in the real life of other people, especially their mental lives. What I realized was I started to panic right when my heart rate got so high that I wanted to pull back. But then I also thought, I'm not physically tired, so I actually can handle my heart rate being this high. What can I do right now to help myself? And so I started breathing. And I really was thinking about this throughout the workout. As my heart rate was high and I was breathing, it was pretty challenging to manage those two things at once. And I thought about students that come to me that express having high levels of anxiety, thinking about other people that I've encountered that are having panic attacks or anxiety attacks. And often the response to people in this state of panic is, calm down, breathe, slow down. That works. But I think a more fundamental or maybe a more holistic question for me is, what can we do in our lives? What habits can we construct that will actually help us when we hit those moments of panic, manage the panic better? So if we put this into the analogy of thinking about exercise, if you do longer bouts of a more moderate cardio, when you hit those moments of high level heart rate exertion, you can manage them better because you've done the longer, slower cardio. If that analogy works, then if we find ourselves encountering panic, anxiety, confusion, an inability to focus, then it would hold that if we spend time away from that, or spend time independent of those experiences, just in our daily lives, maybe our weekly lives, cultivating or taking time, long bouts of time where we feel calm, that maybe that will transfer to when we have the panic attack or the anxiety. And maybe it's just simply having knowledge that you have access to the ability to be calm or live in this less aroused state for a long period of time. So I'm going to make a jump. We all know I have these two lives. One is encountering religion, and the other is encountering mental health and thinking about trauma studies. I watched a movie on Amazon Prime called Athnos, and I think it is just Athnos. It is about a peninsula off the coast of Greece that is reserved for 17 Greek Orthodox monasteries. Unfortunately, it is inhabited solely by men, and only men can visit. That's a problem we can talk about in another video. But what it is a beacon or a apex of is monastic life, which entails continual habits around prayer, continual need to self-sustain, both in a physical and a real basic way, like related to food, but also in an emotional and psychological way. So these men live, some of them solitary, some of them in community. They usually do join together at some point. It is a taxing environment for a social species, or a species if we think about people who want to be attached to their phone all the time. It's going to be pretty hard to incorporate any kind of monastic living. The movie was great. It was really worth watching. And there's another one that will have more of a narrative storyline, so probably will likely be a little bit more compelling as a movie, coming out in 2025. But after I finished watching it, I was so calm in my body that I actually didn't want to watch or listen to anything else. And it took me about a day and a half to feel like I wanted to engage in lively conversation. And I really marked on that and had some reflections for myself about what it meant to dive into thinking about a retreat from the hyper stimulus of our everyday living. And then it brought me to this question about how can we cultivate habits that carry over into our management of anxiety, stress, for some people, ADHD. And I really enjoyed the day and a half I spent after watching that movie slowing down, being quiet, not having a lot of stimuli around me. I did have to go to work the next day, but both the evening and the morning were spent in complete solitude and silence. It caused me to think about other times in my life where I have intentionally entered into this space of silence, calmness, and let's say lack of as much stimuli as possible. And one time was actually on Good Friday. As a Catholic, one of the traditions is to spend 3 hours during the time at which Christ was likely crucified in complete silence. And it was just last year that I had a real long distance to drive, and I did it with no sound and no radio and no phone calls. And it was really the perfect collaboration of stimulus and silence in the car driving through nature up to northern Connecticut. I was so productive creatively after this time that it's really stuck with me, those 3 hours. And I think it reverberates with watching this movie. So I just wanted to offer those reflections to those of you who may find themselves in positions of having anxiety or panic attacks or moments of ADHD, to maybe think about how to cultivate outside of those moments, not just within them, like calming yourself down within them, patterns or moments in your life where you can stop, center, reduce stimuli, and value or actually hold really dear those times, so that you learn what that even feels like or what that can offer you as a whole in relationship to your own anxiety. Thanks.